Is it true that you initially turned down The Force Awakens when first offered the film?
I did, and it wasn't until Kathy Kennedy and I sat down and started talking about what was possible that I found myself really hungry to do this movie.
I bet. And was there a particular moment or a script change, or was it just the process itself?
There wasn't a script yet, but it was this idea that Kathy brought up of a character asking who is Luke Skywalker, and what I felt was that this thing that means so much to so many is going to be brand new to so many people, and that this would be the first Star Wars movie for a lot of people, and certainly that the young people who would be featured in this movie would be characters that wouldn't necessarily know all about the lore, wouldn't have seen Star Wars themselves, and so it was just this feeling that there were these young people that had a story that was worth telling, and of course working with Kathy and Lawrence Kasdan and this incredible cast. It just was something that was very hard to deny.
And how surreal was it directing Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher? I mean, the young JJ and you, it had to be sort of talk a little bit about like the first time you yelled action to them.
With Harrison and Carrie and Mark, these are people that I knew were, I was lucky to work with and were just extraordinary. And Harrison, whom I've known for a long time, I'd never worked with him as a director before. So I was intimidated and a little bit nervous, but the truth is that he was so determined for this to be meaningful and for it to be, it wasn't a job for him. It was like with all of us, it was something that we really cared about. Yeah. So I discovered pretty early on that he was an actor looking to work with the director and the rest of the cast to make something that was special.
The biggest challenge for you in directing this film?
Every day was a challenge, and there were challenges in the writing and the directing and in the post, but nothing like a real job. I mean, it was playtime compared to what people do for real in the world. So it was always challenging, and it was always incredibly satisfying. But it was honestly to get to continue a story that George Lucas began so incredibly was just an honor.
And regarding the new characters, was there something in particular when casting? Because personally, it was so nice to see such an ethnically diverse cast too, and seeing Oscar there, I was like, all right, there's Latinos in space. Sure. That's awesome.
Of course.
And is it something you're conscious with? What exactly were you looking for?
No question. From the very beginning, we were talking about this young woman as the center of the story. We were writing this story knowing that this needed to look the way the world looks. And in casting it, we had no idea what any particular character would look like. But like when we were casting the pilot for Lost, we had an enormous number of characters, and we knew we needed it to feel inclusive. And working on this movie and working on the cast, we had a female at the center, but we also had Leia returning. We had an amazingly strong female character, non-human, called Maz Kanata that Lupita Nyong'o plays. Female. We had a bad guy, Captain Phasma, played by Gwendolyn Christie, female. We have female stormtroopers and female pilots, and we wanted to make sure that people were well represented. In casting this movie, when we found out that Oscar Isaac might be available, I was such a fan of his from Inside Llewyn Davis, that working with him in a role that was really important, and knowing how good of an actor he is, we were so lucky to get him. Adam Driver was an idea that Kathy Kennedy came up with. Loved him. John Boyega I'd loved from Attack the Block. He came in and read and blew us away. And we started to look at these people and realizing that we had a group that felt not only inclusive, but supremely talented, and that we would be lucky to get any of them, and we were lucky to get all of them.
Yeah. How difficult was the balance for you too? Not too much CGI, I'd like to keep it more...
I always knew that this movie we all knew, was going to have an enormous amount of CGI. This was going to be, it's Star Wars, it's going to have a huge visual effects presence, but it needed to have a standard to adhere to. Right. And so, knowing we were going to be extending sets, we were going to be, creating spaceships and all sorts of fairly massive visual effects sequences, we wanted to shoot the movie on film, which we did. We shot on Kodak film. We wanted to shoot the movie with as much physical in-camera work as possible. Wherever we could, we used CG to remove things as opposed to adding things.
Oh, cool.
So, for example, we could have added our new droid BB-8 into scenes, but instead we had these two remarkable puppeteers, Brian and David, puppeteering BB-8 either right off camera or on camera, and we would use CG to remove them. We did that time and again with creatures and other droids, and the effects of the movie allowed for things to happen simply on camera where things that needed to be CG were either in removing legs, rigs, wires, or extending sets. But we built a remarkable number of sets, and not just at Pinewood Studios inside and out, but in places like Abu Dhabi and Skellig Island in Ireland, and Puzzlewood in Wales, and plates in Iceland. And so there were a lot of real locations which allowed for this thing to hopefully have a sense of authenticity.